Well, the eggnog has been drunk, the carols have been sung, and thanks to the Christmas Day snow, piles of reindeer poo were easily visible and not stepped in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Dump and Chase Podcast, episode 37. My name is Sam Olmstead, and joining me as always is my own personal Grinch, whose liver grew 3 sizes on Christmas Day, Mr. Justin Irwin.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really mean to poo on your roof, dude. I got up there and had to go. I didn't.
Well, you could have at least knocked on the door and said hi.
So
if you're gonna come by and like poo on my roof in my yard, you could at least said hi while you were here. It's kind of ignorant. Anyways, so this will be a little different episode than we typically do. The Phantoms are currently on a 6-game losing streak. And as fans, we're not happy about it. As much as we want to look for a silver lining, we're not finding much of one. We're not going to recap games specifically. More or less, we're going to be looking at the trends of the season as a whole so far. And one of the troubling things to us is that some of these trends have seemed to carry over from last season.
Yeah, and I mean, some of this is stuff we see carry over from previous seasons, even to that. So, yeah. Yeah, definitely not the way we envisioned the start of the season. And, you know, now that the magic of hockey is back and is kind of wearing off, yeah, we're starting to get to that part where it's like, well, we want to see, results on the ice.
Yeah, I think the honeymoon's just about over on that one. We're glad that hockey's back, that, you know, some semblance of a normal that we didn't have all summer, but I think the honeymoon's just about worn off on that. So before we get into all that, we do have a little bit of news. Of course, most of you probably know by now, it was announced last week that Riley Funk has been named team captain for this season. I like the pick, and that's not just because of my fangirling over him for the past year. On the ice, he leads by example. He has been one of the few bright spots on the roster this season. Some major props to Riley. It was much deserved.
Yeah, I mean, as strong as he was last season, he is stronger, faster. Just overall a great competitor. You know, somebody that we watch at the game, and, you know, he's pretty much been all we've talked about other than Georgie.
I think that's a point that I don't think has been brought up enough about him. He was no slouch on the ice last year, but the difference in speed this season has been very noticeable.
Yeah, it's more than just a step or two. He's several full strides faster, so definitely whatever he's doing in the off season, everybody needs to take a look at.
And there's one other bit. We won't so much call it news because we don't know what's going to come of it. If anything has come of it yet, we don't know. With the British Columbia Hockey League, or the BCHL, their season has not started yet. They kind of keep bumping the date back. There has been kind of this mass exodus from that league of players coming into the USHL. A very long list of players, actually. There is one player for Youngstown listed as a possibility that he's going to be leaving, maybe coming to Youngstown. But again, we don't know yet, so we don't really want to call it news, just that kind of the word is out there that this could be a possibility.
Yeah, Carter Rose, he's an 0-2 defenseman, decent size, has put up very good numbers in high school and prep. So, somebody, we're not going to count our chickens until we see them on a roster sheet. But, this is the rumor. And obviously, with the situation, not just in the BCHL, Junior A up in Canada as a whole is taking a real hit. We might see Carter, there might be trades coming. Who knows?
Okay, so getting into what's been going on so far this season. Right now, the Phantoms sit at 2-9. That's 11 games into the season with a shortened schedule this year. That's 20% of the schedule. and I'll preface all of this that we're going to be saying is that I understand, there's injuries, there's COVID issues, there's quarantining, that has kept, good chunks of the roster at times off. But at the same time, and maybe the Phantoms have been hit a little bit harder than the rest of the league, but this is an issue the entire league is dealing with. We do understand that, but at the same time, this is something the entire league is going through. So beyond that, what has been wrong? There's several glaring reasons, that anybody that's a fan and has watched this team this season has seen. To start with, just the slow starts in games. And like we said earlier, this is something that has kind of transferred over from last season. These games start, and, we hear the phrase being used, by Brad Patterson, by some others, there's kind of a feeling out process at the beginning of these games. I would say that's the case on the Phantoms part. The other teams just tend to start the game, dictate their will right away. The Phantoms are not setting the pace at the beginning of these games. They're just kind of sitting back and reacting. This 6-game losing streak right away, on average, the Phantoms have given up the first goal of the game anywhere from about 5.5 to 6.5 minutes into the game. If you factor in the entire season, it hovers around about 5 minutes, I would say, on average. That the first goal is given up. The Phantoms have only scored the first goal twice this season so far. But yeah, and it's a lot of what we talked about last year. It's like it's just the team comes out, they don't look like they're ready to play.
No, yeah, I mean there might be a shift or two at the beginning. They'll come out, maybe because you get the energy up during introduction, and then they fall flat. The other teams start playing, kind of more of a half-ice game. We get no breakout. The neutral zone starts to become a kind of a barrier for us. And it just, we don't really even start going until second period. At this point, we had, at least at home, we have no goals in the first period at home.
Yeah, Phantoms only have 6 goals in the first period total this season. And if I remember correctly, 3 of those were from one game.
Yeah. So, again, that's just, you're shooting yourself in the foot right off the bat.
This is something you and me were talking about the week before, and it became very evident this past Sunday, the game with Team USA, the under-18s. So far this season, the Phantoms do not know how to play with the lead. What I have been doing this season, after so many games in, I've been keeping track of, total times per game. I broke it down into 4 categories. The time where there's no score at the beginning, the time at the beginning of the game when there's no score, up until the point where somebody scores first. How much time this season the Phantoms have held the lead, how much they've been tied, how much they've trailed. So far in 11 games this season, the Phantoms have played 664 minutes and 57 seconds of hockey. The amount of time at the beginning of the games where there was no score, 76 minutes and 50 seconds. Times that the game has been tied, 136 minutes and change. The time that they have trailed, 400 minutes, about 400 and a half minutes. And in 600 and almost 65 minutes, the Phantoms have only held the lead for 51 minutes and 8 seconds this season. That is 7.7% of the total time played this year.
Okay, now run the stat by me where it's scoreless at the beginning of the game.
76 minutes and 50 seconds.
So what you are saying effectively is that we have been scoreless at the beginning of the game for more time than we have held the lead.
By almost 26 minutes.
And that's kind of mind-blowing.
And, this is something I've been keeping track of. This is something we've talked about. This played out this past Sunday against Team USA. The Phantoms went down 1-0, came back and tied the game, and then went ahead 2-1, had a 2-1 lead. It was the first time in, since the beginning of December they had held a lead in a game. They held it for 25 seconds.
Yeah. They always say that the next shift after a goal is, the most important. And, that was just so disappointing. and, it took the wind out of our sails. That lead evaporated, almost as quickly as the play scoring it developed. And, boom, you're back to tied.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially the story so far this season is the Phantoms have spent a severe amount of time playing from behind. And it's just right now this is a team that doesn't know how to get the lead, they don't know how to play with the lead. And again, it kind of goes back to just that reactionary, just kind of sit back and wait and see what the other team's doing. And they've been getting burned on it left and right, especially during this 6-game losing streak.
You can look at the injuries, and you can look at other situations, but 25 seconds, that was, the cherry on top, the exclamation mark, and that's been kind of the whole season so far.
Another point in it, again, this is something that goes back to last season, shots on goal. Right now, the Phantoms are averaging 22 shots per game, which is last in the league. 14 teams in the league this year, technically 15 with Team USA being split into 2 teams, but all their stats count as one. Between first and 13th place, there's a 10-shot difference in the average. Between the first place team and the 13th place team. The Phantoms are 3 shots behind, the team below us, which I believe is Lincoln. Shots against, Phantoms are averaging 33 shots against per game. That's also last in the league. And again, this is something that goes back to last year. We, just for the most recent example on Sunday, few minutes left in the game, Phantoms are down by 2. They're on the power play. They pull the goaltender to have a 6-on-4. They were not putting the puck on the net. A lot of skating around in circles, a lot of passes, many of which were being broken up and everything else. Just they were not putting the puck on net with a 6-on-4 advantage.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally understand that, the defense in this league is extremely good. Players are blocking shots, cutting off passing lanes. It's hard to move the puck sometimes, and it's even harder to get shots on goal. But yeah, sometimes you just have to pull up and let it rip and hope it gets through somehow. And nobody seems to be willing to do that.
You go from that, you get to the most obvious stat for anybody watching these games: goals for and goals against. Phantoms are averaging 2.73 goals per game. That's 13th out of 14 teams in the league. They're averaging 4.36 goals against, which is 12th out of 14. And I believe we're in another streak now that we were in last year of the Phantoms not scoring 5-on-5. All of these goals are coming on the power play. I believe we're in another good little run of games here where the Phantoms have not scored an even strength goal.
So, yeah, again, the goals against stat, actually, I'm surprised it's not worse. That's not as bad as what I would expect, considering the shots. So, we've seen a couple of situations where, goalies, especially Scholl, does, a miraculous job for a while of keeping pucks out of the net, but you need some help.
Yeah, so again, these are all things that just watching these games we already know. We just kind of wanted to put some numbers to them. Yeah, it's it's not been great. A lot of in a lot of these games, it's not even like it's a close game until the end. We saw that a little bit at the beginning of the season. That's kind of fallen apart. I think the first few games of the season, they played their probably their best hockey of this season, and it's just gotten progressively worse and worse and worse as, time has gone on, and that's with players returning, that were missing at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so we were kind of hoping that after the new year we'd see the chemistry start to develop. Obviously, we've only had one game, which we did not see that. So, but hopefully, these guys will start to gel. Things will change, but something has to happen, I think, at this point to make that.
The game this past Sunday, starting off, and you and me even remarked to each other at the beginning of the game that, it looked like the Phantoms were playing, that they were playing up to the level of Team USA, that, it looked different from what we had been seeing. And, even there was probably about a good 7 or 8 minute stretch in that second period where the Phantoms actually did look pretty good. I think as the game went on, it started to become more clear, at least to me, that what we've come to expect from the under 18s the past couple season, just that kind of flair and everything that you come to expect from that team after the past couple years, they didn't really have. I don't think this was so much the Phantoms were playing them better. I think this was just a weaker under 18 squad.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're in a transitionary period too. We always expect there's going to be a couple off years. You can't have these massive draft classes like they've had for a couple of years. But 2 new coaches, that is obviously a big factor. I think just maybe a little bit of a culture shift up there. So they're in a little bit of flux. Hopefully we can start to exploit that a little bit more. That's another thing is I don't think we take advantages of when we have areas that we can exploit on teams, weak goalies, dinged up defense. We just never seem to attack the weak areas.
One person I talked to had said their observation was that from what they're seeing right now, the Phantoms are very easy to play against right now. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree with that. I don't know if there's something that other teams are seeing on tape, or, if we're just easy to read, or we're not reacting to their reactions well. But yeah, teams figure out how to play us, and we never seem to get around that. Again, I'm going back to the neutral zone being kind of a barrier. Teams have shut us down there, and we've just never get our offense going after that.
Okay, so switching from what has been to what will be, we'll just take a quick glance at the January schedule, and based on how these teams are doing so far, unless something changes with the Phantoms, this has the potential to be a very rough month. So January 8th and 9th, this coming weekend, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in a little bit. This Friday and Saturday, they have Dubuque coming to town. Dubuque was the only team that started out worse than the Phantoms this year. Seems like they've kind of got their feet under them in the last few weeks. So it could be interesting to see how that goes on this coming Sunday. Chicago comes to town. We all know how that's gone so far. January 14th, the team will travel up to Muskegon. The 15th and 16th, they'll be taking on Shooter McGavin and the under 17s in Plymouth. Seriously, if you didn't see the episode where we put the picture up, look up a picture of the U17s coach. It's Shooter McGavin, I'm telling you. January 22nd through the 24th, that's a 3-game weekend series with the Chicago Steel coming to Youngstown. And to end out the month, another 3-game weekend series, the 29th through the 31st. That will be Team USA, the under 18s, coming back to Youngstown. Now, granted, we're only playing the Eastern Conference this year. I think everybody's on there as far as in January. Unfortunately, the rest of the Eastern Conference, for the most part, maybe with the exception of Dubuque, is doing very well this year. Not so much us.
Yeah, well, I think we're missing Green Bay this month, but we've already.
Oh, okay, okay,
we've played them enough already, so. But yeah, it's going to be rough. Most of the games are at home, which hasn't really been much of a help so far this season. But yeah, I mean, if we can get through this and, get through the rough part, maybe start to play at least 500 hockey, then, we might be in the position as the season progresses from there to start moving up. But we got to make hay this month.
Yeah, it's, to me, I almost feel like right now, best case scenario would be going 500.
Yeah.
In the month of January.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we have to get that going, or at least start playing at that level. If not this weekend, next weekend. Or we're going to be in a fairly deep hole that will be really hard to get out of come playoff push.
Yeah, this would be the month to do it. February, there's not a lot of games in February. And it's not until you get into, later in March and then getting into April where the amount of games start picking it back up, especially from games being rescheduled. If to me, if they just lay an absolute egg this month, that may be it for the season.
Yeah, well, and I guess I will be the cloud here to the silver lining of the season. Yeah, we're playing now, but you never know when another run of COVID through the locker room or something happens to cause another league slowdown or stoppage, where they can't make up games and have to start shortening the schedule or the number of games in the season. And, we're already down to 56 games for the season. So
54,
yeah.
54.
Yeah, 54. So that just makes it that much harder to make a push down the line. And, there's still some uncertainty in the league. Don't let anybody fool you. And, 54 is the maximum.
Okay, so like I just mentioned, this weekend, Friday and Saturday, the Dubuque Fighting Saints will be coming to town. Both games have a 7:05 start time. The game on Saturday is Pucks and Paws night. If you bring your dogs, please, dear God, clean up after them in the concourse. Other than that, I'm good with it. Also, dollar beer night again. And then Sunday, Chicago will be coming to town. That is a 4:05 start time. Yeah, Dubuque, like I said, Dubuque kind of has gotten their feet under them a little bit. They've played some pretty decent games here in the past few weeks. I think if the Phantoms want to get back on track, this is absolutely where they have to start this weekend.
Keep in mind, I think Dubuque was the team that we were supposed to play last season that was the games that were suspended. That's something, the last time they were scheduled to be in our barn, was not a good day for USHL hockey. So we'll be glad to see them. We'll even be a lot more glad if we can ding them up a bit more this season.
So as we're coming down to the end of the episode, we have reached that time once again for another segment of Ask Justin. Okay, so Justin, this week, the question for you is coming from one of the members of our 222 crew, one of our friends at the games, the man with the golden calves, Mr. Bob Schaefer. If you've never seen this guy's calves, they're it's like they've been sculpted. They're a thing of beauty.
I would not wear pants if I were him. I don't anyway.
He doesn't.
But yeah.
Well, he wears shorts. Yeah. We're not saying he's walking around the games without any. He wears shorts, but
oh, come on, spoil it.
All right. So Justin, Bob wants to know from you, who do you think is the most underrated defenseman in the USHL?
That was almost a tough question. And for one, Bob, I'm thankful that somebody is actually asking me about playing hockey.
Oh, he's got a question about social media after this.
Oh, great. But anyway.
No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, to say underrated is, kind of a, arbitrary term. I'm going to actually go with a guy who was selected as a second-round draft pick by the Boston Bruins, Mason Lohrei from Green Bay. It's not that he's not appreciated, but I don't think he's given full props for as good as he is by anybody other than the Boston Scouts. For instance, another defenseman from previous seasons who, got overlooked a lot by scouts, but you heard a lot of press about, mostly because he had a general manager who would not stop talking about him. Chicago's Owen Power. I would put Lohrei even above him, and this is a guy, at this level, you base a team around. And, the fact that I'm not seeing little Sports Illustrated bits or NHL.com bits about, oh, look at this guy in the pipeline, it's like, where are the writers?
Okay, so his follow-up to that question would be, who do you think was the most underrated defenseman for the Phantoms?
And I actually had to think about that for a couple of minutes. I know we kicked this around. I think we both came up with the same answer. My kind of split it. I was leaning between Mike Brown and Grant Heineman, but I had to go with Mike Brown. He's 6'2", 210, and is one of the more mobile defensemen on the team. He's got a great shot, moves the puck well, physical, complete package. And, he's got an even plus minus. So this season, that's at least a small advantage.
Alrighty, Bob. Thank you for those questions. We'll see you at the games this weekend. Again, check out the Cavs if you get it. Also, lovely singing voice. I don't think we ever talk about that enough. Maybe because we don't know if he has one or not, but maybe we'll put him on maybe we just put him on the spot there. Lovely singing voice. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the episode. As always, thank you for listening along. The Dump and Chase podcast is brought to you by hockeyfan.com. We are also syndicated by ohiohockeydigest.com in the Phantom section. You can also check us out on social media. The links will be in the description. For Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thank you again, and we'll see you all again next week.
Welcome to 2021.